Oh God, never gonna get used to that. Thanks, Zoom.
Yeah.
Right.
I love that it gives you the option of leaving the meeting.
Yeah.
Once it records.
Bye.
Like, oh, I'm out. Welcome everybody to another session from the Career Lab. So this is my favorite session, not just because I thought of it, but it's a lot of fun, and not just because I'm not the one being interviewed, although that kind of plays into it too. But anyway, for the next hour or so, I'm going to be interviewing Alejandro, doing a behavioral interview. John is going to interview Indira, doing a technical interview. And we do this session so that you all get to kind of see what professionals in the field say when they're asked the same questions that you're going to be asked in your interviews. And just to kind of like, maybe there's a tip in there, like kind of a way you might not have thought to approach the kind of answering the question, those kinds of things. I will, I'll interview Alejandro for around 20 minutes or something. We can have a little Q&A, maybe debrief, so if you have questions along the way of like, well, why did you answer it this way? Or, like kind of what was going through your mind, those kinds of things, maybe throw those in the chat so we don't lose them. Do a little discussion, and then I'll hand it off to John to kind of run his interview. So anyway, I think what I'm going to do, is I'm going to pin you, Alejandro, on my screen. And that way it's as if it's just you and me, and I'm not looking at the whole gallery and kind of getting distracted by things.
You can do the same.
Aha, good thinking.
All right, that's better.
Okay, cool. All right, so shall we begin? All right, Alejandro, nice to meet you. Even though you work on my team at Zapier. But yeah, I'm excited to talk to you about this role we have at Zapier. I don't know how much you know about the company. It's a workflow automation company, and we it's a SaaS company, or fully distributed. So yeah, I'm just going to ask you a few questions, just to kind of get an idea of sort of your background and kind of your interest in the role and those kinds of things. So why don't you just start by just telling me a little bit about your background, like your kind of history in web development.
Sure. Okay, so, well, I started about, I don't know, like 10, 11 years ago. I studied computer science, well, the equivalent in Colombia. We don't have that exact same career here as you do in the States, but anyways. So I studied that, and I have been always interested in computers, like video games, and that's why I studied computer science, because I wanted to make video games, but I haven't get to it, and I think I will never get to it.
Okay.
I think web development is way interesting for me now, so I really like it. So anyways, I have worked mostly at agencies. So agencies like outsourcing companies, software shops, I think is the name for that.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I started doing Joomla, PHP, WordPress. I didn't know how to do any front end at all. But turns out that after, like, I think my third job was I was hired as a full time front-end engineer. So that's how I became a front-end engineer. Even though in the previous roles I was doing basically everything, like PHP, front-end, deploying things, like playing with Git, because in the second job that I had, we didn't have any concept of version control or anything. It was just we shared USB with the code, and I introduced Git there. So that was a pretty big win for me. And so, yeah, I was doing basically everything in my first two jobs. And then I switched to fully front end, and I've been a front engineer since then, and I really like it. So yeah, that's a good summary.
Cool. What is it that you like about front end?
Well, so many things. So well, one thing that I really like is the fact that I get to see what I'm doing right away, right? And then I get to build user interfaces, I can see the colors, animations, you build something and you start to see it there. Versus if you do backend, it's more abstract. It's here's a JSON and that's it. There's no beauty in that. I mean, visually it's just data, but front end is like super like interactive, I would say. So yeah, and the community, like the whole front end like ecosystem is just huge. So you can find everything you need. And probably the problem that you have now, like someone else have had it in the past. So it is quite easy to get answers. So yeah, that's why I like front end. It's pretty interesting. Yeah.
Nice. What are you looking for in your next opportunity? Like what would be kind of maybe your sort of dream role?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Well, I would like to make an impact, right? So I would like to build something that people use, that people like interact with, so I can get like feedback, like being close to the people, right? So for instance, I don't know, like I want to build a tool, right, and get like data from the usage of that tool and then iterate over that, so we know like, oh, we're doing good, we're not doing that good, so we can change things or we can tweak things up. So that's what I'm looking for, like making an impact and own something. So one thing that happens a lot in the agency model is that you don't have that, because it is basically contract after contract, and you don't get like really involved into all that process of like building the solution from the ground up. It is more like you have this thing to do and you do it, and when the contract is over, like it ends. So you don't get to talk to the team anymore, and nothing is. Yeah, I'm looking for something more like being more involved into the whole process. So
yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I've worked in agencies too, and it's kind of fun for the variety, but then like, yeah, you don't have long-term ownership. You can't kind of iterate on things. So that makes sense.
Yeah. That's why.
Maybe tell me something that you've done that you're really proud of.
Okay, a bunch of things. Okay, so let's see. So now, well, not exactly now because I'm taking a break, but I've been a mentor at Collab Lab. So basically, Collab Lab, if you don't know, is a place where where you can, like, as a professional, like engineer, like someone that works in the industry, most of the times you get to mentor other people. So people that are trying to get into tech, like, and that is a really good experience. And I'm really proud of being part of that. Like helping people is, for me, it is great. It feels great. And we get to, like, we started the Latin American version of Collab Lab in, I think it was in November last year. And it was great, like to take this whole experience to my country. And that's been great. Like, I feel that I'm helping people to get better and to get a job, like to improve and to get, like, meet other professional developers. So that's really cool. And I'm really proud about that.
Oh, that's neat. Yeah. Sounds like a great program.
Yeah.
How about maybe like a tricky technical kind of issue that you needed to solve? Like, tell me, like, kind of walk me through your process for that.
Okay, yeah, well, let me see. Maybe like in a previous job, once we had an issue that it was basically a race condition, right? And what was happening is that we had some async code, and to give more context, the application was some sort of calendar to schedule like social media posts. And because of the nature of that, some data was being published before, before it should be published, because it should wait for another like post to be published. It's like a huge chain of complex things. So in the end, I'm not really proud of that solution, but it worked, because like in the end, it was like, okay, like the more that this endpoint takes is like, I don't know, like 5 seconds. So we're going to add a timeout to that of 6 seconds. Like, it was not the best thing to do, but like it got the problem solved. And the whole team was okay with that. It was not something that I like just decided myself. So because it was not like a really good, like, like technical solution, because like doing a timeout is kind of random. So I looked in like the technical lead and other senior engineers, and everyone was on board with that. So yeah, there you have it. Like,
Okay.
it was not the most complex solution to it,
Mhm.
or the most elegant, but it got the job done and the team was okay with it. And yeah, we fixed the issue. So
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, because I was gonna kind of ask what the process was to getting to that solution. So it sounds like you talked to some people who are like technical people that are more senior to you, and then did you say a project manager or somebody just to say like, this is
Yeah.
a proposal, like we could solve it this way. It's not ideal, but like what were the trade-offs that you were sort of having to weigh there?
Yeah, exactly. That was it basically. So the team was really like strict about, like code quality and good practices and all that. And that was not part of like that solution didn't fit like what we've been doing for months. So yeah, that was about it. Like, it was like, okay, I tried to figure out, like, try to work with the chain of events and try to like get to the ideal solution, but I couldn't. So in the end, was like, okay, like it seems that this race condition could be fixed by doing this, and the longest time that the backend takes is like 5 seconds. So if we, like most of the cases, like out of, I don't know, 20 tries, right? The worst is 5 seconds. So then if we make it 6 seconds, then it will go away. So it was like a negotiation, right? Technically speaking, it was not that hard because like it was like increasing the timeout, but it was more about like negotiating the solution with the team and with the other engineers. So yeah.
Okay. All right, good. That gives me a good sense of that, how that went. Have there been any times you've had to deal with conflict within your team? So maybe people didn't agree on something. Like, how did you solve that? How did you handle the situation?
Yeah, sure. Like, yeah, that happens a lot. Like people don't agree on everything. So yeah, for instance, in a project that I worked, someone was not like, how can I say this? Like, he was not like aligned with what we had as a team, right? As like quality and speed, like like for us, it was more like we have to take things like go slow in order to go fast, right? So it wasn't like I'm going to bang the keyboard and I'm going to finish the thing in 1 day because I can make everything in 1 day. So that person was more like that and we were not like that. So in that case, like we had like certain conflicts at some point because like he was like, yeah, I want to do this, but I was like, no, like take it easy, right? Like this is not the way. And the way I approach it was like that, like talk to him, like look, like these are the cons of going full speed. Because now if we go full speed, then we would have to go back and fix it because probably it's not completely correct. So it was more like talking about it with that person. When things went a bit like, I don't want to say wrong, but like I don't want to say extreme either. I don't know the word, but like a bit more like intense. So then I looked in my manager, and so he was like, okay, I can give you a hand with that. And basically we figured that out, but that was complicated. And yeah, like I had a lot of like thoughts about like going full speed, like in my career, like that hasn't been a successful strategy. So that's why like I'm like, no, this is not the way to do it. So yeah, that was it. Like looking in the manager, talking to the person like about what we're doing. And I was like, I had more experience than him working. So I was like trying to basically like teach him like this is not the way, like this is not getting us anywhere. So yeah.
Do you feel like did it improve the situation?
Yeah, I think it did. Yeah, I think it did. And yeah, I think it was, I think I took the right approach. So
okay.
Yeah.
Right.
It improved.
Nice. Yep. You mentioned ownership earlier, and I'm curious what, like ownership and accountability, what does that mean for you on a team?
Well, I guess that the more like engaged you are with the product that you're building, the better results you produce. Right. So for instance, if you're going to work on something that you know it is going to be like 2 weeks, then it's like I will do as much as I can, but it is not going to be like that level of involvement, because like if I know that I'm going to work on something for, let's say, at least 1 year or 6 months or something like that, like a long time, then you can plan and you can say like, okay, I'm making this trade-off now, but I know that in a month I can come back and fix it. Or, you know, like it's more like basically it is like having a baby, right? You can say that it's like, yeah, this is my baby and I want the best for that baby. So you can like be really like meticulous about some things, maybe some more like relaxed, you know, things, but you know that it's like, you know, the system, you know, everything. And like, as I told you in the beginning, like, you know, that this is the result of like your work. And if it does, like, if we build a great thing, it will perform really well, hopefully, like the users would like it, right? And yeah, like, you get feedback like directly. So then because it is your thing, then you can basically evolve it or change it as you want. And yeah, it's like kind of falling in love with the product. Yeah. So yeah,
nice. Like
something
that.
like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we're down to the last like maybe 5 minutes or so. Do you have any questions for me about the role or the company or anything?
Yes, sure. So you mentioned that Zapier is a fully distributed company. So I wonder how you deal with time zones, right? I bet that you have many people spread across the globe, or I don't know.
Yeah, we do. Yeah. I think it's still true that we are about 2/3 sort of US-ish time zones, so kind of North American time zones. But that implies that, you know, a good third of the company is spread out around the rest of the world. So we have different approaches within the company. So there are some teams that choose to work pretty asynchronously. So we have an SRE team that, you know, is kind of purposely spread out around the globe, and they can, you know, so we kind of have 24-hour coverage for the systems. We have other, like a lot of what we call EPD teams, so engineering, product, and design, these sort of cross-functional teams. We usually try to keep those teams close to each other in time zones, so no more than maybe 3 or 4 hours apart from each other, so that we enable at least, you know, some overlap and like some synchronous time. So, you know, that team will own some part of the product, and they will be able to kind of meet, you know, get on calls like this and actually kind of talk through things at least part of their day. So that's been the approach so far.
Interesting. Okay. And your team is, how is it distributed? Like, is everyone in the North American time zone, or?
Almost. So we have someone in Uruguay, and then a couple of us on the West Coast of the US. So that's about a 4-hour spread. So yeah, it does kind of fall in that range. Nice.
Okay, thank you. And yeah, what challenges are in your team for me?
Yeah, so that's a really good question. So yeah, the reason that we're looking for someone with your level of experience and to kind of come in and help us, we're getting into sort of a new area of the product where we are basically going to be working on trying to help users expand their usage of our product. So usage expansion is kind of the area that we're going to be working on for the second half of this year. And yeah, just having someone who's really experienced with like just front end and architectures and those kinds of things is going to be really important, because our team's going to be sort of renting space in other teams' areas, if that makes sense. Like we have this thing called the dashboard. We're going to have to go in there and maybe kind of work with that team and build things alongside their work. So it'll require sort of being able to ramp up on somebody else's code base and make, you know, add some pieces that maybe fit into a style of doing things that we wouldn't necessarily do ourselves if, you know, we had a greenfield project in front of us, and doing that sort of in a repeated way. So yeah, I think one of the things we're looking for is somebody who can ramp up on like kind of understand someone else's code base quickly. Okay, sounds good. Okay, interesting. Okay, and I have one more, the last one. Yeah, sure. Yeah, so what do I have to do to be successful in your team and
in the company?
That's an excellent question. So, yeah, I mean, there's kind of it's almost like layers of an onion or something. Okay, so there's the work within the team. We're trying to achieve sort of product goals. As someone coming in who's kind of more on the senior side, the team's success is not just you producing code yourself, but it is helping people on the team who are more junior than you kind of be successful as well. So there's a bit of leadership that is kind of expected there for someone to be successful at this level. As you kind of get comfortable with the company, starting to build bridges to other teams as well, I think is another big aspect of being successful in this role. So we have a design system team, we have sort of other people doing front end around the company. We're kind of moving from a sort of a monolithic application and pulling services out. So that's great because teams have more ownership over pieces of it, but it also means that there's the risk of us sort of diverging and starting to do things a million different ways, making it harder for people to switch teams or for there to be code reuse and things. So there's kind of this, the team is the first focus, and then making sure that we can work effectively with other teams is another big aspect of it.
Sounds great. Okay.
Cool. Yeah. All right, you're hired.
Hey.
All right. Whew. How was that? What do people think of that?
Say something.
So good. One thing that I would like to hear about too is, Andrew, when you're listening to Alejandro, what kinds of things are you listening for?
Good question.
So
well,
good.
That's a great question. So, I have my biases, right? Like I started a nonprofit that's about collaboration. So, I'm definitely listening for those, when he was talking about that other engineer that he was working with and trying to kind of guide him to, slow down a little bit and take more care with quality, like just listening for, like, how did he approach that conversation? Was it, is he kind of a good teammate? Like, is it constructive and positive, or is it like, oh yeah, I shut him down or something? Like I wouldn't want that. So I'm kind of looking for people, I guess, that are low ego. That's one of the things that I'm trying to kind of read between the lines here for, so that people can kind of fit into the team and kind of, keep the team's interest first.
That's a good one. I was thinking, because I know that a lot of interviewers are trained on looking for particular things, whether it's like people fitting into your company values or whatever it might be. So I might recommend, before any of you go into an interview, a job fit interview like this, do brush up on that particular company's values and find a way to work their values into those stories from your past. So if one of their values is default to transparency, Alejandro was like, I was having this issue with somebody on my team, but I went to them, I was transparent with them and worked it out with them. That's something that can really stand out.
Yep, for sure. I'll try to catch up on chat. If there's anything good in chat, tell me.
It was just me talking a bunch of trash mostly. You can ignore it.
I'll check in. Oh yeah.
Other thoughts on job fit interviews from anybody? Questions about job fits? Have you done job fit interviews? Did they kind of go like that? Similar questions, similar vibe? Job fit interviews are my favorite. And I think that Alejandro did a really great job of bringing up some specific things from the past. So do be prepared when you go into any of your job fit interviews with a handful of stories from the past and recite those to yourself, because if you have those stories in your head, you can almost apply them to any question that's asked. If you're really familiar with the story and comfortable with telling it, you can kind of spin it to answer any of the questions. So you can kind of manipulate the interview in the direction you want it to go rather than where the interviewer wants it to go, just by having a handful of really juicy stories and experiences.
Also, after you get a job, whenever you have a difficult situation, write it down in a document so you can reference back to them when you have to practice for interviews.
Oh, Indira, that's amazing advice. Jason, one of our
I was going to bring that up.
mentors, yeah, he was like, has this whole document where he like has listed out those, you know, things that have happened, and I think like what he learned from them and how they benefited him. I'm like, brilliant idea. I want to do that, and I never do it, but I want to do it.
Yeah, the one from March 25th, where so you want to be an engineering manager. And actually, the techniques that he talked about there, you know, you should be doing at, you know, day one of your career. It's,
Yeah.
he goes through and just, what does he call them? Scenarios? Is that what he
Something
called
like
them?
that, yeah.
But he could just like pull up, you know, just scenario after scenario where, you know, he wasn't, like he was trying to work into being an engineering manager, and he was, you know, an engineer, but he would kind of track these situations where he had to kind of flex into those skills so that by the time he was interviewing, he could list off how he'd done a bunch of the things already. It was really impressive, and something I wish I was organized enough to do myself.
I have one
Cool.
thing.
Yeah.
One last thing. So like the way I see it, when you interview for a job, it is really important to ask those difficult questions, right? Because you're going to spend, if you get hired for that company, you're going to spend all your day, maybe years there. So you want to know like how, I don't know, like how to be successful. What are the difficult parts of the job? You know, like, because sometimes the only thing you see is like, oh my gosh, this product is great. But then the team could not be that great, you know, like they might not encourage, you know, like questioning things, you know, like all those kind of stuff. So ask a lot of questions and difficult questions. That is really important. So do it.
Yeah. I would encourage you to just so Alejandro doesn't get the last word, to always ask the if it's the hiring manager you're talking to, ask them what their management style is. Ask them what their leadership style is. If they don't have a good answer to that, it means that maybe they're not as sort of self-aware around those things. If they do have a good answer and it doesn't fit you, that's good to know. If they have a good answer and it fits you, it's like you struck gold. You know, that's going to be somebody you want to work for.
Corinne has a question.
Karen, you actually
Oh
raised your
yeah,
hand.
just a quick thing. One thing that really stumps me, and I hate this question, it's like, what's your 5-year plan? Because like it feels like a trap, because for me it does, because it's like, okay, so you like hiring is an expensive process, and you wouldn't want to like have me leave in 5 years. But like, for example, me, like my dream was to eventually work in the veterinary industry and help out in the industry. Luckily, I didn't have to join a different industry before getting in, but like for me, like I was just honest, but it just felt really awkward being like, eventually I want to get in the vet industry, whether it's in 5 years, who knows, but I will take it like as like, I don't know, I'll have it go organically. I'm not going to like plan 5 years for sure.
5 years is just too long. I would want you to know 6 months or a year from now what things you'd want to learn, and maybe like, you know, if you're trying to work towards something. 5 years, who knows what's going to happen in 5 years time? I don't know. I've just never lived my life like that.
Same. One other piece of advice I wanted to add is that since a lot of the questions are about like difficult situations that you've had in the past, like about a time you've had conflict, for example, what you don't want to do is be like, oh yeah, that person was terrible, they had bad ideas and stuff like that. You want to show empathy for the people that were in that situation with you, and you want to consider the trade-offs. You're like, well, I thought this was important, but they thought that was important, and so I can see where there was a trade-off. But at the end of the day, if you look at the business value or whatever, this is where I come down. So kind of showing that ability to consider alternate perspectives is another really important trait that folks will be looking for.
All right, Jessica, I see your question in the chat, and I'm going to think about it while John and Indira do their thing, and hopefully have an answer for you towards the end of the call. I'll hand it over to you.
All right, I'm going to do the thing you did and switch to only seeing Indira. Okay. Yes, there we go. All right. Well, welcome, Indira. Thank you for coming in today. You have already submitted your submission for the take-home interview, or for the take-home exercise. And so that's what we're going to be looking at today. Normally at this point, I would kind of go over it, and we would look if there were any issues with it, and I would ask about how you might correct them. We might walk through doing that. To be honest, your submission was great. I didn't see any issues at all. I don't see anything that we could really improve on. So instead of that, I'm just going to ask you to walk through it with me and just sort of explain how it works, and just what the logic there is. And then after that, we'll add a feature to it.
Okay. So do you want to see the code or the
yes,
UI
please.
first?
Oh,
Alright.
Good question. Either way, I think whatever you think would kind of tell the story of it better, whatever would be a better explanation is fine.
Yeah. Okay. Let me show the UI first. So what I did is I added a radio button with the two options that we have right now. So I have a lowercase and an uppercase. So if I click on lowercase, it has a lowercase and uppercase. Puts it as uppercase. So I did consider a couple of things before my submission. The first thing I did was just use the submit button as a trigger. So I would just change it between lower and uppercase whenever I click submit. Then I tried to do like a toggle button. But to be honest, like the CSS was working against me. Like the way I've done it in the past, it has been like mostly with a library. So I decided to go with the simpler option of having a radio button.
Got it. That makes sense.
Since one of the conditions was don't use any libraries.
Right.
So in the code, I added a new state here. I indicated the selected option and said selected option. I initialized it as lowercase. It could have been initialized either way. So for my return function, I added this section. So I added a radio section. I added two inputs, one for the lowercase and one for the uppercase. For the check, I basically compared the selected options with my values. And on change, for change, I added a new function, handle change radio. And that one would basically update the selected option with whichever one I had picked. I did update the submit function. So when we click that submit button, it will check if the selected option is lowercase. If so, I just call text input to lowercase. If not, I will do a text input to uppercase. That's my solution. Do you have any questions?
I do, not to jump ahead too much, but I see that you have this as a simple Boolean, so it's an if else. If you had to expand this to support more than just two conditions in the future, how might you approach that?
I would do an else if.
Okay.
That's how I would handle it. I guess an
So
option would be like, if for some reason I didn't have anything selected or it's none of this, I would just make it match. Without doing anything to it.
Got it. That makes sense. Yeah, I like the handling the null case there. Okay, great. Are there any other approaches? I'm actually, and this is me is stepping out of character from it. JavaScript isn't my first language. I don't know if there is like a case statement.
Switch case.
A switch,
Yeah.
Switch case, yeah. Would that be an option here as well?
Yeah, that's another option.
What would be the trade-offs there? Like, what would be the advantage of doing it one way versus the other?
I'm not sure, but my guess is that it's gonna be faster to pick one of the paths. It doesn't go like one by one. Yeah, it will go faster into each of them.
Okay, that's fair. All right. Well, I think that was a really clear explanation of how the code works. So let's go ahead and move on to adding a new feature. What I'd like you to do today is add a third mode, as foreshadowed. And this is going to be basically where you capitalize the first letter of every sentence. So we're not going to be too strict on the exact rules of grammar there. I have a write-up of exactly what that should look like. So I'm going to go ahead and paste that into the chat so you can refer back to it later. And I'll give you a moment to read it now. And just let me know when you're ready.
No idea where to shut.
Oh, it's really hard to find. if you put your mouse right in the middle at the top.
Okay, yeah, I found
do the little dot, 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 yeah.
It was like really tiny, my screen. Okay, so a question I have about the write-up is, let me give you a mix. Just copy this one over. Okay. Using the same keyboard for Mac and Windows is not great.
Oh, no worries.
Okay, I'm just gonna read it. So if I were to have this input, which already has a capital letter in the middle of my sentence, should I, is the output of this going to be this, or should I leave it alone?
Great question. Let's go ahead and make all of the letters lowercase except for the first letter, which we will make uppercase. So you should correct it to be only the initial characters of each sentence to be uppercase.
Okay, so this would be the output for that, right?
Correct. That is correct.
Okay, so I guess the more realistic one.
Yeah.
And they would both have
Correct.
so
I think those would have the trailing periods on them as well, but the question you were actually asking.
Yeah. So the first thing that I would do is add another option here, a third radio button. The following thing that I would do is like update my function and have them submit, and use a regex to split my input by a dot, an exclamation mark, and a question mark, and then modify each of those. So I'm gonna start by adding the third radio button. So this it's called application. Let's do another else. Now, the first thing I'm gonna do is split it. So I'm actually copying this one because I'm not that great at regex and I just figured it out beforehand.
Oh, that's no problem. I should have mentioned this earlier, but if you'd like, you're welcome to use the internet. You can look up API documentation or regex documentation, whatever you like. The only thing I would ask is that you don't look up literally the solution to the exercise.
Yeah. So like basically this will split on a dot, exclamation mark, question mark, followed by a space. So I'm going to do a for loop on output. Input. This, so here I'm gonna update my input. Let me write. I'm gonna create a temporary output. Which is gonna be an array initially. And for each of these, I'm gonna get the first character and capitalize it. So a temporary variable, and I'm going to do and input substring. Okay. I'm not sure if this 0 will work or if I was gonna need to do let me just do the substring 0. Just get the first character. I'm gonna add this to my output. That my text output, I'm gonna join that output with space. Make it a string. I think this should work.
I think that looks promising.
That's okay. Let me use the example that we had. I'm losing my punctuations. Huh.
Yep.
Okay.
I think when you do the split, you're not retaining the actual punctuation that you're splitting on.
Okay.
This might be a case where looking at the API documentation, the split might be useful. I suspect, again, JavaScript's not my first language, but in most languages, there's a way to keep whatever text was split on. There it is. Oh, interesting.
Oh. Okay.
So
I need
for
to.
those following along, yeah, this got a little more complicated than expected the first time we've gone through this.
Okay. So I need to add this parenthesis in here. I think now it's possible, but I'm gonna end up with double spaces. So let me remove this one here.
I think that will work. I think you're going to end up processing those, period and spaces as full sentences, but if you uppercase a period, it's still a period, so I think it'll be okay. But we'll see. Yes, excellent.
So, okay.
What happens if you put multiple spaces between the sentences? I think it should be fine, but I'm just curious.
I think it will show all the spaces.
Yep. Oh, but I was wrong. It does have an issue.
Um,
I think this is okay. Can you see what's happening there though?
because the split is only on the first one, and I'm not removing any empty spaces at any point.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it's exactly right. So I think what it's trying to do is treating the first space in that, like it's a space, and then some words is the sentence. And it says, oh, the first letter of this sentence is that first space, and it tries to capitalize it, and then nothing happens. So yeah, I'm going to say that's beyond the scope of this exercise, so we don't have to worry about fixing that. Great. Well, I think you did a great job there. Let's go ahead and call that finished. There are clearly, if we were doing this for real, some extra things we'd want to take care of, but I think for the purposes of this interview, that was awesome. Do you have any questions for me before we finish?
What would have been your approach for the question?
I think it would have been very similar. I might have used a switch statement instead, only because that makes it, when you have the if else if kind of stuff, then there could be any kind of conditions in there. It could be based on anything. Whereas if you do a switch on a known value, then you know that value is the thing that controls which branch we go down. So it's just like functionally it's the same. It makes no difference. It'll work either way. But I think it communicates the intent of the code a little more clearly. That said, that's a very minor quibble. I wouldn't say that it's a big deal at all. So I'm not concerned about it. But since you asked, that's the only thing I think I would have done differently.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Going back into, I can see everybody mode, and I'm opening up the chat again.
Nice job, Indira.
Yeah.
Even though it's like not a real interview, it's like, yeah, it's still stressful, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
People have questions about that?
It looks like there's some backlog in the chat. Obviously, I wasn't watching that.
There were no questions, but it was just
okay. Fair enough.
What ways do you see, either one of you who do technical interviewing, see people generally get stuck, and how do they respond to that? What's like a bad response to it, and what's a good response to it?
I mean, usually when people get stuck in a technical interview like that, it's just because they just freeze up. They're like, I don't know what to do next. Yeah, this is totally normal. That's super duper common. I think anyone who does technical interviews has seen it a million times. And I see my job at that moment is to try to like put you at ease as much as I can. It's always going to be a little stressful, but the point for the interviewer, they want to see you do well. They want to see what you can do. They want to see your stuff. And so like, you're not going to be that nervous when you're actually on the job most of the time, most days. So that's not really representative of what your performance would be like. We want you to do as well as you possibly can. So the way I think the good approaches to that are basically what we've already talked about before, is have some sort of steps you can go through in the back of your mind. It's like anytime you're in a stressful situation, you're going to do what you practice. So you're going to fall back and start to like, okay, what's the first step? Is to ask questions about the problem. What's the second step? Is to brainstorm different solutions, right? So go back to that. Try to get unstuck somehow. Try to start, that brainstorming step. Throw out some ideas that maybe aren't very related. Maybe they are. Also, just be honest. Just say like, hey, I'm super nervous right now and I'm kind of freezing up a little bit. Can I have a moment? Is it okay if I have a drink of water or something to come back? People will understand it. It is totally okay. That is a totally normal response. Again, that we've seen a bunch of times. It's totally fine.
Do you ever have people
the bad?
ask,
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
okay. You go ahead with the bad one.
Oh, I was just gonna say the response that isn't great is to try to force yourself to just power through it, because that just makes it worse. That just makes it more stressful and harder. So kind of step back, reset, think about what your next steps are, and do those.
Yeah. So like, when like things weren't working out perfectly in Indira, like say that she were to go through and be like, all right, well, let's just walk through what the code is doing and go through like line by line. If she were doing that, then is it like inappropriate or good or bad for her to ask questions? Like if she doesn't understand something, like, like I'm going through this line by line. I don't really understand what this line is doing, but here's what I think it's doing. Can you tell me, like, do you know off the top of your head, like a quick TLDR about this? Like, is that like,
yeah, that's going to vary from interviewer to interviewer. For me, that would be totally fine. And for me, it's totally fine if they want to look at API documentation or whatever. Like I kind of mentioned out loud and encourage it, like, hey, this is a great time to go check out the APIs. Let's see what they actually do. Not every interviewer likes that or is okay with it. I think they should be. Like, I think that's the better way as an interviewer to do it. But you may, as an interviewee, you may encounter folks where they don't want that.
That's exactly on brand with what I've experienced, because I felt like, oh, ask him John, he would tell you. But I had a technical interview once where I asked a question like that. Can you tell me what this does? They're like, I can't tell you anything. It's like, okay, now I'm nervous. Anyway.
I would recommend, you can't necessarily ask for technical details. Sometimes you can, sometimes you can't. But I think it's always okay to ask about the parameters of the interview. So if you're not sure, you could say like, is it okay for me to look up the API documentation on this? Or is it okay, like, I could look it up. Do you know offhand? So just to save the time of going on the internet and tracking down, is that cool? And they may say no, but I think that is always okay to ask.
To be honest, that is a good question to ask the hiring person, the first one, the recruiter, because they tell you what are the expectations during the interview. When it's okay for you to look up stuff online during the interview, they will tell you. They say this is a per programming interview. You're gonna be sharing your computer. You're able to look up stuff online. They will tell you. If they don't tell you anything, the most likely thing is that you won't be able to use any resources outside of your programming.
Okay, cool.
I have found that the recruiters have about an 80% accuracy rate for that kind of question. I wouldn't count on what they tell you. I would definitely ask the interviewer. A lot of times there's going to be a lot of different interviewers. It may not always be the same person with the same interview. And so like a different person just happens to be sitting in that day and they have a different policy or whatever. Now, again, that's a sign of not the greatest interview strategy. That should be something ideally that the hiring manager would sit everybody down and do a kickoff and be like, here's how to run all the sessions, and here's all the policies, and here's the rubric for exactly how to score everything, and here's exactly what we're looking for with the answers to all of those behavioral questions or whatever. Not every company does that. So just know that there's going to be some variance.
Cool. Daria.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just wondering, are there any things that a candidate can do in a technical interview that would be red flags?
Sure. Any kind of behavioral red flags, if they said something really disparaging about another person or something like that, you can do that kind of thing in a technical interview, and that would be a red flag. Or any kind of, work inappropriate behavior along similar lines. In terms of on the technical side, I mean, if they said something like really wrong, or just not wrong, like incorrect, like wildly incorrect, that would make me wonder a little bit. Like if they said, as we all know, JavaScript is a compiled language that doesn't run in browsers. So I'd be like, really? That's an odd thing to say. So you know, something like that. I can't think of anything else. I don't know, Andrew or India or anybody else.
I just put in the chat like bar a equals blah. You know, like maybe like super terrible variable naming or something. I mean, I don't know. I mean, even those things, it's, you know, it's also the heat of the moment, so it's hard to count people down too much for that. But
yeah, one thing, like, and this may have been mentioned a little bit before, but like try not to like dog on yourself, like crush your own skills and stuff. Like it's easy to be like, oh, I don't know, I'm not very technically skilled, or I'm new or whatever. Be like, you know, I actually don't know how this works yet, but I'm really interested now. I'm going to take a note so I can come back to this after the interview or something. Like saying this as somebody who does that all the time.
So when I've had people, there was a question I used to ask where I'd have a person start off with a really simple thing, then we'd kind of build up the difficulty, and I could kind of take it almost, I don't think there was anybody who ever was able to, once I ramped up the difficulty far enough that they could solve the thing. So part of the point of asking the question was to find the place where they don't know something and then see how they react. Not sure how I feel about that as a pattern anymore, but I used to do this. And I had people who would react to that as like, oh, I've never seen this before. Like it's like kind of like Stacy's talking about, like really curious and wanting to understand how it works. Then I had people who got angry with me on the call. So there's like a whole spectrum of people's reactions to these things. And you can guess who I hired and who I didn't hire, right? So, so you know, like if like one of the things I'm looking for too, like Stacy, you were asking, like is curiosity and just kind of like, is this stuff fun for you? And kind of like you're like, oh, I want to know that. Like I don't know that, I want to know it. You know, because that's gonna pay off in the job, because there's always going to be something you don't know.
Yeah, this is backtracking a little bit, but when you're coming up with those stories for the behavioral stuff, come up with a story about something you really were excited about, and then show that you were excited. Be like, oh, that was so cool. I got to do this thing and I built this stuff and it was really helpful for the people who needed it, or whatever it was that you were excited about. Like that's going to come through. People are going to connect with that. One other thing, this is not exactly a red flag. It's more of a like bonus credit if you do it, but similar to the var a equals blah, if you have all your white space looking neat and all your indentation is right and your brackets line up and everything like that, I don't ding people for not doing that. It's an interview, it's the heat of the moment, it's fine. But the code does look better if you fix it up so to line up and be nice. And I cannot help but be a little bit affected by it, I'm sure. So it's one of those things. The reason is that besides just being easier to read, it's one of the huge differentiators between folks who are just barely getting started and don't necessarily have the skills yet, and more senior engineers. Once you get those skills, I've never met an engineer who did not care deeply about the code formatting. You don't have to have the same style as me, but a consistent and readable style is really gonna make an impression whether you have it or not.
Yeah, I haven't really thought about it before just now, but like if you're able to indent it, correctly, whatever that means for you, that means you understand the code too, like the structure of the code. What I see is like things that are kind of like things that aren't indented sort of correctly means like you may not know that like those braces denote a block of something or whatever, you know. So it's a good point.
What if you are given some sort of code that you're expected to augment? Are you supposed to imitate the style that it already has?
Yes.
Yeah, that's really common
I would
too.
say
like,
that.
Well, like what I was talking to Alejandro about is like my team's going to be going around to other people's code bases, and we don't get to set the rules or how they format their code. We're going to have to adapt to how they do it. So yeah.
Consistency is always more important than better. There's a saying, standard is better than better, and I think that is 100% true about code styles. Sorry, Indira, go ahead.
Unless your interview, it's like make this pretty, which is
that's true.
Also, which could also be a question like, what don't you like about this style of programming? How would you make it better?
Sure. Yep. And to backtrack even more, so Jessica, you had asked about sort of what are bad that, or like kind of, I don't know, red flags or something of questions that candidates ask. And there were some really good ones in the chat. I'm, you know, fully on board with those answers. And then the only other thing I could think of was, you know, maybe a candidate, like if I'm the hiring manager and a candidate's asking me about, you know, the salary and the benefits and some of those kinds of things, like it's not a terrible question, but it's a better question for the recruiter than it is for the hiring manager. Like I may not even be up on all the latest like policies of like what our vacation policy is and those kinds of things. And the other thing that it does is it kind of shows me, I mean, it's a job. You should be concerned about how much you're going to make. Like it's not going to be our relationship though, for the most part. Like our relationship is going to be about like the work and the team and those kinds of things. So show me that you're excited about those things. Talk to the recruiter, like negotiate as hard as you can with the recruiter about the salary, you know, but have that conversation it just kind of keeps it more comfortable for the interviewer, I think.
Yeah, and just as a strategic point on this similar note, you're going to be in a position of much more leverage after you already have an offer and you're talking, or not an offer, but they once they've decided they want to hire you, that's when you have the most power to affect what your benefits or salary or whatever those kind of things will be. So I would wait until that's later. Now, I do think it's fine at the very, very upfront when you're talking with the recruiter to be like, what's the salary range? Like getting that information up front is not bad at all. But in terms of like pinning down the details, I would wait till the very end.
Yep. All right, cool. Whew. That was a lot. That was really good. I think that was good. Was that good? Did you all feel like you got something out of that?
That was really good.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Nice.
Very helpful.
Awesome.
I do think, like I posted in chat, it would be helpful next time, like interview me and I'll go back to when I was trying to get my first dev job, like when I was working for Chicago companies. Like, here's how I took all my previous experience and like working in social media and stuff to that point.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, I've been an interviewer twice now. I'd be happy to flop around and do the other side or whatever.
Oh. I like that. Cool. Thanks everybody for coming. And I guess the next thing on the Career Lab agenda is setting up, well, no, it's practicing in pairs, practicing some of this stuff with another collabie. Then after that, we'll get into actual mock interviews with mentors. So are there particular dates, Stacy, that I should be remembering for that?
No, not really. Just want to pair and like try and get your stuff scheduled ASAP so that everybody can have it on their calendars for the week. And yeah, those are the last things. Do your mock interviews. Be loud if you don't quite know how to word something. Just post it in Slack because we can all like brainstorm together. And then, yeah, do your mock interviews. And at the end of the week, we'll celebrate.
Great.
That's
cool.
it.
Thanks so much, everybody. Have a good rest of your day.
Bye, everybody. See you soon.